The year is 269 AD. After 2 decades of raids over the Danube, the Goths faced the Roman army under Emperor Claudius II at Naissus. The barbarians overran many areas and in fact besieged Thessalonica. When he had hastened against them after they had been dispersed into many areas, Claudius at one time was victorious in naval battles and at another time in battles joined on land. Storms afflicted them and famine befell them and destroyed them. The history of Zonoras. Claudius is victorious against the barbarians and takes the name Gothicus, conqueror of the Goths. This is the first major victory against the Goths since they began their raids in the Balkans in 249 AD. But the barbarian tide didn't stop. It will take another great emperor, Aurelian, to finally put an end to those raids at the cost of the prized conquest of Trajan. Hi everyone, before starting the video, I want to list the sources that you will also find in the video description. For primary sources, we have fragments from the Greek author Dexippus in his work Scythica, the Historia Augusta, Zosimus' New History, and Eutropius' Breviarium ab Urbe Condita. For secondary sources, we have Michael's Kulikowski, Rome's Gothic Wars, Roman Oltenia by Dumitru Tudor, The Goths by Peter Hedor, and Herwig Wolfram's History of the Goths. Now, with the sources listed, let's get back to the video. The earliest mention of the first contact between the Romans and the Goths appears in a palimpsest manuscript from the National Library in Vienna, which is thought to have been written by the Greek historian Dexippus. This fragment belongs to his work Scythica, according to a study by Gunther Martin and Jana Grusková. The text describes events from the year 250 AD, during Emperor Decius' campaign against the Goths, who are near the city of Philippopolis. The Goths were apparently led by Cniva, but the author also refers to them as Scythians. This designation of Scythians seems to have been used in Zosimus, Dexippus, and the Historia Augusta to describe the Pontic Goths, as explained by Ronald T. Ridley in his translation of Zosimus. In Historia Augusta and also in Getica by Jordanes, the Goths along the Danube seem to be mentioned with the name Getei, which was the Greek name given to the Dacians. The Greeks called in the sources the Goths as Scythians due to them inhabiting the lands that were ruled in the past by Scythians. In the 3rd century AD, during the military anarchy that followed the assassination of Alexander Severus, the Roman Empire faced a series of external attacks on its border with the Persian Empire, as well as on its European frontiers along the Rhine and the Danube. Along the lower Danube frontier, pressures seem to have begun as early as 245, according to Zosimus, when the Romans and the Carpi entered into conflict during the reign of Philip the Arab. Eutropius, however, makes no mention of a clash with the Carpi in 245, but does mention that in 250 the Goths and the Carpi invaded the province of Dacia and attacked south of the Danube as well. In 249, the kings called Argaif and Guntheric, or possibly a single king called Argund, sacked Marcianople. Also, the Goths under Cniva crossed the Danube at Oescus and sacked Philippopolis, though it is worth mentioning that in another fragment from Dexippus, Scythians might have attacked the city of Histria on the coast of the Black Sea as early as 238. The historian Mikhail Kulikowski theorizes that due to the overlap of the terms Goth and Scythian, perhaps this might have been an earlier instance of a conflict between the Goths and the Empire. The attacks of the Carpians into Dacia breached the Transalutan limes, which was built to defend the province from attacks coming from the east. The conflicts with the tribes north of the Danube continued in the following years. after Decius's defeat at Abritus in 251. Due to this defeat, the future emperor Trebonianus Gallus was accused of conspiring with the Goths to get rid of Decius and ascend as emperor, but it seems more likely that due to the chaos created by the loss of the Roman army at Abritus, Gallus didn't have any other option but to negotiate with the Goths in order to salvage the situation. The Historia Augusta, Zosimus and Eutropius tell us that the Goths and other northern tribes continued to attack the provinces south of the Danube, including Macedonia and Greece, even plundering Illyricum, Italy, Nicomedia, and Bithynia during Emperor Valerian's reign. At this time, when Shapur I, king of Persia, decided to attack the eastern provinces, Valerian needed to pause his campaign against the Persians in order to defend the cities of Anatolia from Gothic attacks. These attacks were the result of a coalition of Goths, Borani, Carpi, and Rugundi, who managed to penetrate as far as Italy. Eutropius mentions that during this time the coalition also plundered Pontus and Asia Minor, destroying the cities of Nicaea, Nicomedia, and Ephesus. Meanwhile, the Scythians, probably Goths from the northern Black Sea, with help from the kingdom of the Bosphorus, began maritime raiding expeditions in northern Anatolia. The Goths suffered a defeat during Gallienus' reign when he intercepted them in Illyricum. Two other important Roman victories followed in 268 and 269, when Emperor Claudius II defeated them at Naissus and Doberus, gaining the title of Gothicus, which means conqueror of the Goths. Even Emperor Aurelian fought against the Goths. In this conflict, Aurelian seems to have crossed north of the Danube and might have killed their leader Canebaudius, but the weakness of the lower Danube frontier in the past decades forced Aurelian to make the decision to abandon Dacia and withdraw the administration and legions south of the river to Moesia, and founded a new province named Dacia Aureliana. Even though the abandonment of an established province was a huge decision for the Roman state, the process of abandoning Dacia might have started earlier during the reign of Gallienus. This interpretation comes from archaeological discoveries in Roman customs in Dacia, in which coins with the face of the emperor start to disappear after the reign of Gallienus. The Romans didn't see the abandonment of Dacia as permanent, but just a temporary solution in order to stabilize the frontier along the Danube. After Aurelian's death, the situation along the lower Danube appears to have stabilized. Zosimus and Eutropius mention only conflicts with the barbarians neighboring the provinces of Gaul, Raetia, and Noricum. During Carus' reign, Eutropius notes a confrontation with the Sarmatians, but states that they did not penetrate deeply into Roman territory. He also mentions conflicts with the Sarmatian and Bastarnae during Diocletian's reign. The Goths make an appearance again during the reign of Galerius as Caesar in the east. Eutropius writes that he had Goths and Sarmatians within the army with which he invaded Persia in 297 AD. They fought in Media and Abiadene and took part in the capture of the Persian capital of Ctesiphon. Unlike previous decades, these events reveal a shift in the relation between the Romans and the Goths. After more than 2 decades of conflict, the Goths were now fighting alongside the Romans against the Persians. This change likely resulted from the stabilization of the lower Danube frontier. This moment also marks the beginning of the integration of the northern Danubian barbarians into the Roman military system, several decades before they were granted the status of foederati in the Roman army during the reign of Constantine the Great. But why did the Goths attack the empire in the 3rd century? What drove those barbarians that arrived near the Black Sea in the 2nd century AD to engage in raiding expeditions over the Danube and even attack as far as Greece and Anatolia? In the minds of the Romans, the attacks of the barbarians were a natural phenomenon. That is what a barbarian does, according to the Roman mindset. Barbarians attacked the empire in the past. In the 2nd century AD, they managed to put pressure on the Roman frontiers during the reign of Emperor Marcus Aurelius, which spent years campaigning in order to pacify the barbarians and respond to their incursions. At that time, the barbarians attacked due to the weakness of the Roman frontier caused by its war with the Parthians, and later due to the Antonine Plague, which decimated the population of the empire, including its military. At that time also, Dacia presented itself as a weakness in the empire's defense and faced the full brunt of the Marcomannic Wars, which led to an administrative and military reorganization of the province. And in the 3rd century AD, the empire ran into a similar situation. The empire was in a succession crisis after the death of Emperor Alexander Severus. At this time, usurpers from the army, the so-called Baroque emperors, fought over the control of the imperial power. This military anarchy, combined with a more aggressive Persian empire under the Sasanians, and new episodes of plague and monetary crisis, left the frontiers weakened, and barbarians along the Rhine and the Danube sensed this weakness and started raiding deep into the empire. Such was the case with the Goths, whom, along with other tribes north of the Danube, raided as far as Greece and Anatolia. But the abandonment of Dacia and the consolidation of the frontier alongside the natural borders of the Danube under Aurelian managed to prevent future attacks of this magnitude in the following decades until the reign of Licinius in the 4th century AD. But that is a story for another video. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more in the future, please like and subscribe, and also leave a comment. It will help me tremendously. This was History Republic, and I wish you an amazing rest of the day.